individual consumer's point of view, they want to satisfy a need. They have a particular urge or desire or hunger, and they need that satisfied. They are very often the only person involved in the decision-making process. There's no influencers, and they're not buying on behalf of somebody else. They very often are buying for themselves, and therefore it's a quite straightforward buying process. It's not complex. It's not too expensive a transaction, and as a result of that, the information required and the information that you as a salesperson have to provide the customer so they can make a final decision is not that significant. On the other hand, though, organizational buying is slightly different. Businesses buy products and raw materials and equipment for different reasons. Sometimes it's just because they need another number of items similar to what they're using because they're expanding their business. Sometimes they need the better new upgraded version. Towards the end of yesterday, I used the example of Virgin Active, who took over from Health and Racket in the early 2000s. And one of the first things that Richard Branson did as the founder and poster boy of owner of Virgin, or the whole Virgin brand, indicated from the start, there's two things that he wants to, he can't change it. A gym is a gym. A training center, fitness center is a fitness center. It's got aerobic studios, and it's got pools, and it's got squash courts, and it's got exercise and equipment and treadmills and cardio sections, and that's not going to change. He just doesn't want to be the owner of that. So that's where the leasing, we finished off with leasing as one of the as one of the methods of purchasing that business is purchased, because they don't want to own it. I know that, for instance, because I've been in that particular industry for a number of years prior to what I'm doing at the moment, and I started as a personal trainer and a cricket coach 30-odd years ago, and I think what was very clear to me is that, and what I have learned during that time is that a treadmill, for instance, that you see in the Virgin Active, I'm not sure how many of you are gym bunnies, but for those gym bunnies out there, that apparatus that makes you sweat quite a great deal, that helps you obviously a great deal with your cardiovascular fitness, is actually an item that, as you find it in the gym, it can very easily cost you anything from 24,000 rand up to 74,000 rand. Okay, I just have two students who have joined us on campus, and welcome. You're the first students this semester that has actually been in a contact session. So let me just get.
So firstly, apologies for being late.
No. Late is a relative. I just want to ensure that we can link this up again. Just see if the blue light should be on there. Where's the red light? They're just switching on a projector so they can see. There we go. It should kick in right now. But what I learned, it's a costly item. So you can imagine if you walk into any fitness center or any gym for that matter, you guys, how many gyms, how many treadmills do you usually find in a normal Virgin Active gym? It's a lot, because that's one of the things that's very popular, that and stationary bikes and those ecliptic walkers. I mean, in the cardio area, you're talking about 10, 15, 20 items. Now, at a cost of about, on average, 54,000 rand. Hey? It's up to you.
No, it's up to you.
If you can see the screen, I'm fine.
Oh, okay.
You don't have to wear a mask either, because I mean, you're behind this perspex. But to continue with the example, you can just calculate yourself. That's just the gyms. That's 54,000 rand for a treadmill, and the treadmill and the belt on the treadmill that simulates your running motion of the road is manufactured to last you about 100,000 kilometers. Now that doesn't seem a lot, but if you could, when you go into the gym, there's always somebody on a treadmill. You can imagine at some point that treadmill is going to require service, and that's exactly what is needed, and why when Richard Branson took over as the Virgin brand took over the fitness domain in South Africa. One of the first things that he changed is I'm leasing all these things because in 3 years' time, there's a better improved version of this treadmill, of this bike, and I want to actually upgrade. If I own it, I have to find a buyer for it. Okay, so that's where we left off yesterday. As one of the methods, leasing being one of the methods that organization buyers use to purchase the products that they require. In the case like Virgin Active, if we can stay on that same topic, another important aspect for sales people to remember is that the type of product in this case and the purpose for which the product is going to use is going to influence the buying decision as well. Raw materials, we know that businesses buy raw materials because they want to use that in the production process or in the manufacturing process, so that the end result is a different product to the one that they got. Eskom is an example here, okay? Electricity is not just automatically, we don't find it in the walls of our homes, and if we plug it into the socket, then we have electricity. The process starts with them using coal and the whole process of converting that into usable electricity. So that's an example of a raw material that is now that is changed shape because it was used in the manufacturing process, because that particular business, Eskom in this case, in the business of selling electricity, not in collecting coal. So the type and the usage of the particular product is also an influencing factor when organizations make buying decisions. That's where we left off yesterday. What we'll be doing in chapter 5 and chapter 4 for those students who have the version or edition 10, that will be chapter 4, is to focus on some sales strategies, different sales strategies that's related to the behavior of the consumer. The title of the chapter is Sales Context and Customer Management. Basically, what it means is we look at all the different factors, or the most important factors that influence the buying decision of individuals and of businesses. We'll specifically be focusing on business because this chapter, and I suppose for the rest of the module as well, because in consumer behavior and in marketing, we have extensively covered how individual consumers behave and what their specific needs are. So that's why this is not called consumer selling to consumers, but it's actually called sales and operations, because we're looking at the function of the sales function within the operations of a business, and specific strategies that in this chapter we're going to be looking at that can be developed for a business to ensure that they reach their sales targets. And you'll see that so far I have put on both the selling hat and the buying hat. For you to be able to sell effectively, you need to know what the buyer wants. That's the crucial element that's of successful sales. And that's what makes the business function. The business is not going to function if we do not have customers. We can have the best product, but if we do not have customers, we don't know who the correct customers is to approach. And even if we do know who they are, not delivering the correct message, they're not going to show interest in our product. And that's basically where sales fit into the whole picture. So in this chapter, we are specifically going to focus on environmental and managerial forces that influence the buying decision, where the environmental factors are going to be split, or forces are going to be split into behavioral as well as technological. Okay, just to see over a period of time how the advancement of technology has impacted on the whole sales process. Right, any questions, anybody at this stage? Where are we now for time? I'm still getting used to the new timetable, and I love the 40-minute sessions, I can tell you that. I think you like it as well, because usually the last 20 minutes you sleep, or the first 20 minutes, or the middle 20 minutes you sleep in an hour session. But anyway, attention span is just, it's so much better to actually have a shorter period. I find it difficult, however, to cope with the 5 minutes between classes, getting from one class to the other. I just came from the next building. Fortunately, this class was open. Otherwise, I had to wait for this lecture to finish. Not for you at the home, online, any problem, but that's just putting a few things in context. Well, I think it's page, let me see, I think it's page 112. Yeah, page 112. In the 11th edition, you'll find that table 5.1 that's on the screen. That summarizes everything that we're going to do for the rest of the chapter. We'll be looking at each of those behavioral, technological, and managerial forces individually, as they are stated there. Among the behavioral forces are the fact that customers have become used to a high quality service, and therefore they expect more. Technology has changed. It made the whole sales process more accessible, I think, but it's also made it more challenging because the sales force is now being automated. As I said to students in another session this morning when we were doing personal selling to the first years, we're doing communication, and we know that that's extremely it's extremely important in any sales process, that you are able to communicate effectively to the customer, because you might be sending a wrong message out, and because you are providing them with information that, in your opinion, is important, it might not be for them, and therefore when they decode the message that you send out and they respond to it, the response is not what you wanted, but it's also based on the information that they received. But effective communication requires you to listen very carefully to the customer. And I think that has become very difficult, or is a function that is very difficult. I know that a very good friend of mine, I'm not going to mention his name, but he's one of the 3 richest people in South Africa, but I think you can all calculate who that is. He said to me once when we were in a very short meeting, because my partner was a very enthusiastic individual, for a lack of a better word. In other words, he wanted to get his point across. And this individual responded and said to him, you know what, you've probably heard this before, and I'm going to tell you again. There's a reason why you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. You have to listen first before you speak. Okay. And I thought, okay, we get the message. Thank you very much. We did get the deal at the end of the day. It wasn't the issue. It didn't affect the outcome of our transaction with him. But I think it is a very valuable lesson. I mean, I think we can also recall from when we were with children, and your parents probably not, because I mean, they weren't allowed to touch you at all. Okay, affection, yes, but not to punish you. I know my dad hit me behind the head, and he pulled me in my ear and he said, listen, when I talk to you, look me in the eye, because then I know that at least there's eye contact, and there's an increased chance that you actually are listening to me. We can't do that with our customers. What I'm trying to say is the methods that we use to communicate, a customer where sellers and buyers communicate. Although there's been a lot of direct selling and face-to-face contact selling in the past, and that is now being prohibited because of the COVID restrictions, the same methods and the same techniques still apply. The fact that the person is in the room with you, but 1.5 meters away, because that's what's required, and the fact that you are sitting in front of a screen, which is 30 centimeters away, or you're looking at the face of your tablet or your cell phone, which is even closer to your face, the same message applying. You still, and yes, I know that many of us have this during COVID, have written exams online or have attended classes online, still in our pajamas, but at least we had the top was fine. Okay, right. So everything looked fine. Everything was visible on the screen. People, regardless of what of all of these things, the fact is that the principles still remain the same. Even if you're talking, and because of Salesforce automation, we were required to do a lot of our selling online and via Zoom sessions and Teams sessions, the principles basically still remain the same. More about that in a later chapter. One of the first forces that impact, one of the first behavioral forces that impact on the consumer's decision making is has been identified as the rising consumer organizational buying expectations. If I produce a wonderful product and you are ecstatic, we've achieved our goal, right? We set at the start of this course, what do you want as a salesperson? What's your objective? A, yes, to make a sale. B, even beyond that, you want that customer to come back. You want retention of customers. You want them to become loyal and support you, the brand and the product. Now, for that to happen, obviously we're going to try and deliver a high quality product. Once you deliver a high quality product, the bar's been set. The expectation is there. The customer wants that every time. Okay, and because of that, salespeople now also have to continuously upskill their game, because the customer's expectation is out there and the customer's expectation is very high. The fact that modern technology has come into the process made communication quicker and more efficient also is important, because people now expect you to reply immediately. If I text you now, you actually want a response immediately. Add to that the characteristics and the traits of Gen Zs. You guys are in the rush permanently. Okay, you do nothing slow. I think you even sleep fast. Not you.
No, I said that's the other eye.
It is.
Talking about it earlier.
And that's you quite. Yes, you don't have time. Okay, right. Is it going to take long? I mean, I'm getting that response from my son. Is it going to take long? If you keep on interrupting me, yes. No, but I think once a high expectation has been set, you have to, if you want to retain the customer, unfortunately, repeat that high performance, and that makes it more challenging because salespeople often, and that's one of the challenges that traditional salespeople were faced with, and that is the fact that you're pushed into sales if you weren't sure of what career to follow. And everybody can sell. I mean, you can try selling, and then that's what. Often you get unqualified people who are now in a sales position. They basically have raw experience, and that's all they have. They haven't got proper qualifications because of the way that technology has changed the whole selling process. And we'll see later on the impact it has specifically on Salesforce automation. It now requires the salesperson to have a proper qualification because they have a different function that they have to fulfill. They are not just taking orders anymore. They're not just picking up the phone, phoning a customer, selling a product, taking the order. They have to now focus on relationship management, because that's the only way that the increased expectation from the customer is going to be satisfied consistently. Right, anybody, any question at this point? Do we stick to the timetable? Do we do 40 minutes and then a break, or should we just see how we progress and then break whenever the two people in front of me's eyes drop and I can see that the lights are on but nobody's home? Okay.
Yes, let's keep it going, sir.
Okay, I like that. Thank you. Ethical considerations. One of these things, I mean, also a bad reputation. Sales people in general have a bad have a bad reputation. I think it's page 113 if you're looking, Asha, in you got the old one. It's right after that table. Okay. Okay, we'll get there. Ethical considerations, I think one of the two headings might change. I mean, and as we progress through the course, people, assist me with this. I think point 2, ethical considerations, if you see on the slides there, it might have a different name in the 10th edition. It might Yeah, I think it might have a different. I think it might be called customer avoidance of buyer-seller negotiations. Yeah, basically what it comes down to is, it's the same context. It's just they've named it differently. What it basically means is that the bad reputation salespeople over the years, or traditionally, have been labelled with, is built in is a result of them being trained in the art of negotiation, and how to create pressure to ensure that a sale is made. So they were trained in specific aggressive tactics, putting pressure on the customer to buy. Now, and as a result of that, customers have not really experienced the whole sales, or a sale specifically, as a really enjoyable activity. It was an ordeal to them that they just thought they needed to cope with because and needed to tolerate, because that's just how things were done. Because that's very much how it has been done traditionally. You sometimes find, especially if a customer, if you put yourself in the shoes of the of a consumer, and you're listening to somebody trying to sell something to you, it's very often where they cross the line is where they when you can immediately feel that they are starting to push you to make a decision. So you know what, we've only got 5 items left. I mean, at the end of the day, you know what, if you lose out if you're not going to buy one today, you know what, if you really like it, buy 2, because you can see it's flying off the shelves. There's only 5 left. Now that's sometimes very unnecessary, because the customer might not need to. The customer might not need that product. You have more than 5. You've got 500. You're just trying to flock it, and there's a reason why you have excess stock of that. Maybe it's replaced by a better version, for instance. Maybe the series has been discontinued. These are all things that approaches and methods, techniques, selling techniques that have been used in the past, and that added to the anxiety of a customer when they enter into a sales transaction. That has changed, because, as we said in the previous in the previous slide as well, relationship management has become important. If you really want to retain those customers, you have to train your sales staff in the ethical selling practices. And I think it's done in the chapter later on. I think it's chapter, let me see quickly. It's not chapter 10, it's chapter 9 or chapter 10, when we're dealing with key account management and relationship management. That's the buzzword nowadays, because we've identified it yesterday as well. It's very important for you to establish a long-term relationship with the customer. That's what customers want nowadays. Customers want to be loyal. By nature, you want to be loyal. You don't want to chop and change, because we are creatures of comfort. Okay, it's too much trouble for us to change from one supplier to the other, go to a different shop, because you're used to your restaurant you go to, you're used to the shop you go to, you're used to the layout in that particular shop. So we would much rather be kept happy at that shop, so we can stay with them and we don't have to go to a different venue. That's why it's important that relationships are formed, and for relationships to be formed, there must be trust. If there are unethical practices that's used, where there's pressure put on you to make a decision, you're definitely not going to contribute to the establishment of a solid relationship. Expanding power of your major buyers. Now, obviously, when a market becomes very competitive, and markets have become very competitive, and every time a new competitor joins a particular market, it increases the competitiveness, which means that businesses now have to start specializing and focusing on a particular aspect. They don't, to distinguish them from the other competitors. Now, salespeople need to respond to the increased demand of these buyers, because if you have if the buyer has the control, it's not that you as a salesperson have lost that particular customer or lost that contest. You need to modify your approach to ensure that in an attempt to satisfy that buyer, you listen more carefully to what their specific needs are and their changing needs are, and very often sometimes I've heard of businesses that when approached by a customer, and that's a very good tactic to have if you have the capacity to do that. You go to a supplier that you have supported loyally over a period of time. You are a key account and you'll are an important customer to them, and you will buy again, and you have just placed the order for more items that you usually buy from them, but there's something else that you want and you don't want to shop around for it. So you actually put that business in a position where they, to keep you happy, they are going to now start manufacturing that specific product that you will have demanded now too. That's where the buyers start getting, well, not control, because at the end of the day, you're selling more items, and that's the intention of the company who's supplying and who's selling. You don't really mind if they do that, but if you have the capacity. Look at what happens. Woolies, familiar brand. Woolies didn't start off in groceries. Woolies was a clothing company. They were clothing more before anything else. They realized that by offering, they were sort of forced into diversifying, because a lot of other clothing retailers started opening up and became competition. Woolies, a number of years ago, boom, that's it, that's where you go. I can remember, that's where we bought our clothes when I was a child. Well, that's 40, 50 years ago. And competitors started entering into the market. There's a Edgar's, then there's a Fashini. Even Cape Union Mart, all these places added, they were also clothing retailers. And then Willie said, okay, all right, people are still buying our clothes, but yeah, we've got two choices. We can improve the quality of our clothes, but then we have to increase our prices of our products. Or we can diversify by offering, and they started selling other household goods. So now people go there to buy clothes. Initially, they went there to buy clothes, and then they started buying bedding, and they started buying groceries as well. Next, and now it's reverted to actually have a Woolies Foods that don't have clothing, and your big Woolies actually offer everything. So it's an example of businesses that where competitors entered the market, and businesses were forced to change. And now, if you were the supplier to Woolies for their clothing, you had a choice. You lose the Woolies business, or you diversify your manufacturing business so you can still supply to them. They said, listen, we're going to go into something else. We're going to add some bedding as well. Can you guys do that? Yeah, well, and again, that's where suppliers can change, because the demands of the buyer has changed. Okay, enough about that. Everybody understand that? All clear? You good with that? I suppose a nod means yes. Let's advance to the next one. Globalization of markets. Now, we all know, who hasn't played Monopoly? Who hasn't heard of Monopoly? Okay, I'm assuming that the silence means that we all heard about Monopoly. Right, now we know that game that families used to start playing and then eventually ends up in a fight, right? Because you want the hotel on Sandton Road and whatever, and we become greedy. Now, that's just a board game that replicates what happens in real life. Now, when you initially bought your first house, you weren't happy with that on a particular plot in the game I'm referring to now, right? You wanted to buy another house. Then you eventually want to actually put a hotel on that plot. because you're going to get a lot of money if one of the contestants fall on that. Okay, that's just how the game works. Now it's exactly the same. When businesses reach a certain point of saturation, they want to expand, and often they want to expand globally. The fact that technology has made the world much smaller has resulted in businesses now opening all over the globe. As a sales, Coca-Cola, for instance. Coca-Cola is a very good example. The majority of their revenue is from overseas markets, not Atlanta, Georgia. That's where they are, and that's where they started. But they're not only selling Cokes there, they're selling more Cokes everywhere else in the world, but where they originate from. Now, you can imagine if you are in business who are expanding and I think the next chapter is about international trading. Chapter 6, yeah, international selling. But that's for next week, no worry. Globalization of markets, just touch on it. If you are going to expand your business abroad, it means that you have to now start studying different cultures and be conscious of how customers in different cultures behave. You're not going to open a McDonald's in a densely Muslim populated area and run beef specials. It's not just going to go down well. You're also not going to do that in a Hindu based area in India, for instance, where the cow is a sacred animal. So you've got to be very conscious of a lot of things. Different words mean different things. Remember from consumer behavior in the first semester, that video clip of Mr. Bean, who was using the middle finger because he thought that when it was extended to him, it was a sort of a greeting form, and he thought, wow, the Americans are very, very friendly. Okay, and then he duplicated that, and actually, no, it's insulting. So different things mean different, and different words and different colors mean different things in different countries. And that's why when you are in sales and your business is a global business, you cannot just duplicate what you have done. You duplicate the brand, you duplicate the logo, you duplicate the colors and that, but you cannot, your sales strategies have to be modified according to the particular international geographical area that you're operating in. Right. You're almost done. Are we done? It's 40 minutes, isn't it? What? When does this period finish? Okay, let's okay, I'm gonna finish and wrap up with the fragmentation of markets. Now, initially, everybody, many years ago, businesses were all centralized in a certain area, and then people thought, you know what, we don't like our neighbors, and we don't like this, and we don't like that, or maybe we've run out of specific natural resource and we have to relocate. And by that happening over centuries, the globe got populated. Now, in a particular region, it means that people also have realized that maybe because of the nature of what business they're in, they have to be in different areas. So the markets started segmenting, and businesses, when they entered the markets, said, oh, we're not going to go. No, let's use the Woolies example again. The retailers came in and said, listen, Woolies are selling clothes to, or stock clothes for adults and for children, and specialized businesses opened up and said, we're going to be selling just children's clothing, or just men's clothing for that matter. And that has evolved over time. Some of those businesses still exist. Some of those businesses catering for specific market segments still exist. It might be gender-based, it might be geographically, demographically based, lifestyle-based. And that's how the market is fragmented, because businesses are often confronted with the challenge of, do I continue in the industry that I'm in, Do I have the capacity to counter the new competitors that has entered the market? Or do I specialize in something specific that I know I will still have enough customers, or I can actually create more customers because of the new ranges that we offer. So market segmentation, or how the market is segmented, has also resulted in specialized suppliers requiring very specific tactics to market to a specific market segment. It has a lot to do more specifically with the message and the methods that you use to reach your target market with a specific market segment. If it's a youth market, you know that the platforms that you have to use to get the message across is different to that of maybe the elderly market, the over 50s, the millennials. They still read newspapers and they're on Facebook, where the younger market is more into, you guys are into Instagram and stuff like that, or not even. Okay. Anyway, let's take a break. When we resume, I'm just going to stop the recording just for the purposes of uploading the material this evening, and then I'll stay online.